Hello, so welcome to this video for COMP3218 Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name is Dave Millard and I'm here with
Dan Hobson. I'm a demonstrator on the course.
Thanks, Dan. So we're going to look at a couple of student games today. Dan, do you want to just say a little bit about what we asked the students to do?
Yeah, so for this coursework, we asked them to give us a small game prototype that has a clear core dynamic and that shows through a tutorial how that core dynamic works.
Brilliant. Right, let's get on and have a look at our first game. Okay, so our first game is called Box Quest. So, level 1, press R to reset. No other instructions though. So
yeah, there's three objects in existence. We've got the green pill, the red box, and some green square. If we're based on colours, maybe the green things need to get matched up, but there's not actually a clear description of whether that's what we're aiming for.
Like that.
So you've got control of the green pill there, I guess.
Yep, so I was just playing around with the arrow keys. That seems to work. I don't think anything else does anything. So that doesn't seem to do anything. So
okay.
I have another theory, which is that those two things are the same shape. So let's have a look at that.
Sure. And so I guess this box is pushable.
Go. Oh, I've already messed it up. There we go. Hey, so. Ooh,
yeah, don't get it stuck in a corner because you might not be able to get it out again.
So interestingly, because I'm a stupid lozenge shape, it actually makes it really hard to push.
I guess on the flat faces you might do okay, but on the corners the collisions will be weird.
No, even on the flat.
Oh yeah.
Slip past it.
Right.
So if I sit here and I'm just going to press the right arrow key, nothing else, yeah.
I wonder whether they maybe even put a lozenge collision on the cube.
It's odd, isn't it? I'm not sure what's going on. Ugh, crikey, that's quite tough.
Well, let's hope that this theory is correct, because if getting the box there doesn't do anything...
I'm also wondering whether I think there might be friction against the walls, because it's a lot harder to push it.
Yeah.
Knife. Right. Let's hope this works.
Yeah.
I suppose... Oh no, I might have a problem now, because I pushed it all the way down here.
We're going to be able to not get it off that wall.
Oh, we can't get it off the wall. Oh, we can. Oh, hang on. There we go. There we go. Right.
Okay.
Oh, I thought I was going to have to press the dreaded R to reset button. Knife.
Okay.
I feel like I'm a toddler with like one of those toys where you're supposed to put the right thing in the right,
put the thing in the right shape.
And they sort of stare at it in total confusion, and you think, "Oh my life."
Okay.
Okay, am I supposed to, is that right? I sort of assumed this would do something.
Does it give you feedback? Have you got an audio cue or anything?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Well, at least we know what we're doing now.
Just push off the edge. Can I put? Oh yeah, I can fall off the edge. So this looks like it's some sort of platform, so I can presumably push this off the side.
I would assume so. You have collision with whatever the floor is. But the box doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, we're back. All right, let's stop messing around. Let's go for it. Oh my life, this is going to be very painful. I think. Reset. Right, there we go. Right, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Look at that. That's going. That's just straight. Oh, slipping off.
Don't jinx it.
Don't jinx it. Oh my god. Oh, damn it. Yes. So one of the conversations we had in the lectures was about setting difficulty and about the difference between difficult and sort of punishing, right?
Yes.
I would say this is quite a punishing game because it's not difficult for a good reason. It's difficult because the control system is not good.
In particular, I would say that the thing that makes it quite punishing is if something goes wrong, you're penalized pretty heavily. Like you end up restarting the entire level, and the levels are relatively long.
Yeah.
Because of how long it takes to do the control.
So in fact, we had a look in the lecture. We had a look at a little game called Trap Adventure, where you die very, very frequently, but it has a very high iteration time. So each play lasts about 7 seconds.
High iteration rate.
Yeah. So in which case you can get away with being, whereas here, it's hard because the controls are poor, not because and it's difficult, or becomes extra difficult, becomes punishing, as you said, because I can essentially, if I die now, I go right back to the beginning.
And I think the key bit is, if you die now, you don't feel the sense of, oh, I could do better, I'm gonna try again. You kind of feel more in fact, more the frustration of, I have to redo something that I already know how to do.
Exciting. That's right, and it's going to take me ages.
Yeah.
And then we also get these weird things here, like I can't recover that, right? So
yeah.
And it doesn't always come back. So the other thing we told them to do was to play test. So I have a feeling that when they play this, it's fine, and they play this and they just get it to the end and move to the next level. And I wonder whether they've actually play tested with anyone who's not the developer.
Yeah.
And realise how difficult it is.
It's even making me wonder, is there a mechanic that we haven't discovered? Like, if you could drag the box, that probably would be way easier. But as far as I'm aware, we haven't been given any indication that we can interact with the box by any mechanism other than pushing it.
It's a good point, though. Let's stop. I'll stop moaning and see if I can press some buttons.
Do you happen to be able to, hold E and it sticks to you, or something weird like that?
It does look like it's and it's a shame in a way, because when it came up, I was getting real Thomas Was Alone vibes, right? With the kind of with the strong shapes and everything. And I thought, this is going to be a game where there are things that I need to do that are sort of circular shape that I can do as a lozenge, and there are things that I need to do that are square shaped, and I'm going to need the box to do those things. But
from a
so far
visual point of view, it does look kind of nice. Like, it's certainly consistent, just because all the colours are flat. The geometry is consistent.
Should we make a start with the presentation then and have a think about what it does? So this is essentially graphics and audio and controls. So audio, there's a nice sort of tune that's going on. That's kind of like a fairly lightweight. I'm not sure if it fits. It's sort of light and breezy, and it feels like I should be making much more faster progress than I am. Right? There's also a sound effect when I fall off the edge, but not when I push the box or the box goes off the edge. So that's a little. Do you happen
to remember when the box got to the end of the first level? Was there a trigger effect on that?
Don't think there was, because we were a bit surprised that we just suddenly appeared here, right?
Yeah.
It's not clear to me why. The graphics, on the other hand, very simple, but I mean, you couldn't argue that they're not consistent. Nicely set titles up in the top left. It doesn't look like the default font, so that's quite good. Someone's thought about it a bit.
And we ask students to make sure their presentation is consistent and appealing, but no marks for having designed fancy custom sprites and things like that.
So I think they've done a good job. So so I would say that. So what is good?
So for good, we want to see professional, maybe complete and effective graphics, audio, and information design.
So I think we're there for graphics, and I think we're almost there for audio.
Yeah.
Information design. So
I think here we have to wonder what information they need to present to us. There's not a lot going on, so there's not a lot presented to us, but then again, there's not a lot that needs presenting to us.
No, I mean, and this might be a problem. So sometimes in a game, and we might get to this in a minute, in a game with very few mechanics, it's quite difficult to demonstrate the things that we're asking them to demonstrate. And I'm sure this will come through when we get to the meaningful play bit in a minute, and also things like pacing. It appears all over the place. and tutorials as well, because if you haven't got much to explain, it's very hard to demonstrate that you're doing it in a good way. And I think this is the first place we see that. We're exactly right. There's not a lot of information. So if we think about what information they're trying to get across to us, they're basically trying to tell us, well, first of all, what level we're in. Second of all, the objective, which is communicated through the shape. So I've got a red, although like you said, the box is red and the circle and the square is green, and I'm green, and so even that's a little bit confused.
I mean, our first guess was connect the green things, and we had to fail at that before we discovered connect the square things.
Exactly. So you know, that's somewhat problematic, and you could play with that in a bit more of a puzzle game. But I don't know quite how they.
Maybe it's true that in future levels we see different color boxes or different shaped goals or anything.
Exactly.
Maybe it does come into effect later, but not as far as we've yet seen.
God, I am struggling to get this to go down here. It's absolutely mad.
In that first level, it might have been nice to see some information design that just focuses the player's attention to specific things. You know, focus the attention to the capsule. Move the arrow keys. Okay, now you understand what the capsule is. Next, focus your effort on the goal. Light it up. We know that we need to go there. Next, light up the box. We need to interact with the box or whatever.
And you know, and again, I think that will come through in the tutorial bit as well. But even more basic stuff like there's nothing to communicate that I can't fall off the edge, I suppose. So there's nothing to suggest that there's. I mean, obviously, I find out pretty quickly. Cannot get across to you how frustrating this is. It's not just hard. It's you know, annoying.
It feels like a little bit of one of those level designs for a game that is almost maliciously crafted, right? Like something that looks like it could be easy to complete, and intentionally drops an enemy on you just before you reach the end or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sort of terrified. I'm just tapping it because you slide off so easily.
Seems like we might not manage to see level 3, 4, 5, 6. Apparently, they
might not get
the game notes.
I'm gonna try really hard. So in terms of presentation, I think if it was just graphics and audio, I'd say maybe halfway between good and satisfactory. But because of some of the inconsistencies with and there's not much information, but I think probably we should go for maybe satisfactory.
Yeah.
Next up, I think, is meaningful play. Is that right?
Yes. Mechanics, controls, and bugs. This is where we've got the biggest issue, perhaps.
Yeah. So I'm not sure we've seen any bugs exactly, but mechanics really not seen very much so far, right? So we only have pushing a box, and we have a box goes on a button, and that's it. I suppose you could argue the falling off the side is a mechanic, maybe. But that's, you know, that I'm desperately trying not to push it off the edge. So that's a problem. And the controls are, I mean, the little lozenge thing works all right. But it's the pushing, and given that is your fundamental piece, you know, I mean, I tell you what would have been a much more fun mechanic, right? Would be, imagine if what you do is shove the box, right? So
like with violence, and it slides.
And it slides, and you know, it's something like the longer you press, the more you push it, right? So then this becomes a little bit more like a sort of almost like a mini golf game, effectively. Yeah. Where there's an element of skill to it. It's a lot faster. That's going to go off the side. I think part of the other problem is if I fall off the side, I've got a feeling the box resets, which again is very difficult. And I've got no way of pulling the box.
Yeah, I mean, if the thing they're going for here is pushing the box, then maybe we just haven't seen it yet. But I think the interesting gameplay for that comes from either the box is a strange shape or you're a strange shape, and therefore, you know, pushing it left, right is easy, but pushing it up, down is weird, or any of these kind of, it could be terrain, or it could be something that means that there's meaningfully different play when you're pushing the box in different situations. Whereas, you know, these levels, you're doing exactly the same thing over and over and over again, which is push it forward a bit, push it forward a bit, push it forward a bit,
desperately try not to mess it up.
Yeah.
So what would be a pass for meaningful play?
For this, we're saying challenging, few mechanics, awkward controls, may have serious bugs.
That's kind of what we are. I mean, what would a
dropping down to a poor would be limited, so either insufficient mechanics, difficult controls, may have critical bugs. I mean, maybe our controls here really are in difficult territory.
I think the controls, I think for me it comes down to the mechanics, right? So is this it? Is this the only bit of the game? In which case I think it's probably down at the poor level.
Yeah.
If there's a little bit more to the game, crikey, the tension rising here.
From the game note, they're saying that the future levels 3, 4, 5, 6 will have some extra mechanics. We'll maybe have to come back to it when we see them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll say let's say what we've seen so far is kind of at the poor level, but yeah, if we get some more things, then I think we can say it's really difficult, challenging controls, but what's going on? So yeah. We really need to see the next level. I'm sort of
next thing on the design sheet is level design, and we really want to see more than just 2 levels, at least when they're there for us to be able to compare those.
But they really should have toned down the difficulty.
Yeah.
Or the other thing to do is to put a level select on, so if you can't complete a level, we can still go to see.
Right.
Here we go. Right, so looks to me like we have we've got gates that are okay. So here's the extra mechanics. So we can we'll go back to meaningful play and say that's a pass, right? Because we have some meaningful mechanics. Although it says difficult controls, I mean these controls they're absurdly difficult, right? And they feel needlessly difficult. So I'm still wondering. Is there anything below for the controls? Is any of the other ones below?
Well, if we go below poor into absent, we get unplayable, unusable controls, no real gameplay, game may not run properly. We're bordering on unusable controls, but of course we do have mechanics and no major bugs unless you're calling the control interaction buggy for being so bad.
Well, tell you what, let's put it halfway between the two. And that's a kind of reflection. Right, here we go. This is going to be interesting because you've seen my. So I'm going to just give a big shove now.
Well, we don't know whether or not these barriers block you or kill you, or.
We should have tested that first. I assumed they would kill me. I also realised I've gone the top route. I mean, we'll get to that in a minute, right?
Yeah. You've got more barriers, but maybe they're easier.
Because I've got just one barrier. Yeah.
My assumption is that the bottom one is flashing more frequently, but I can't actually tell from.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Dear, it's not worked. So interestingly, this level is much more engaging than the last level straight away, and I think it's because I've got the variety of getting past those two, and it's much more forgiving.
It at least feels like 3 small tasks, or 2 small tasks, whatever, going through each barrier is its own mini step, which I guess comes into the pacing a little bit. Whereas the previous one, there was no meaningful change at all across the level, and since the level took so long to complete, it was a long time of no dramatic change.
Yeah, so I think that was a particularly bad level, but come on, we're getting there. I have to say, I didn't think we were going to see much of this game, but hopefully we'll see at least another one. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So
we're back to narrow corridors again, so you're going to have a struggle on your controls. But
yeah, absolutely. And I can't do anything. So it looks to me like I've got to push it down that one to trigger that
which opens this door, maybe. The question is, if you leave the button at the bottom, do you stuff up the door again? Presumably not, because you don't have two boxes. Not.
But again, straight away, I'm like, oh, this is just really irritating, because I've got to push it a long way down very narrow corridors with my terrible control system. Yeah. And I'm not facing...
My first thought is, go jump on the button, just in the vague hope that you won't have to do the bit. Yeah. If it turns out that jumping on the button does it, then it saves effort. But
such luck. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's try to. Well, we've seen enough now. So should we go on to the next category?
Yeah. Okay. So level design, looking at the goals, the risks, and the rewards.
So the goal I think is very straightforward, but not articulated particularly clearly. But it's, it does look like I know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, every level has the same goal. So as soon as you've figured it out on the first level, it's communicated thereafter by just being the same thing again.
It's kind of interesting, right? So we've had one level so far which had a choice. And I could go to the top where I had 2 slow flashing gates, or I could go to the bottom where I've got 1 fast flashing gate. That is a genuine choice. It's only risks, though. I'm not getting any rewards, really.
That comes down to the whole reward system. It's not clear what good play looks like, right? Is it specifically fast? Is it specifically dying not very many times? Is it something else, right? So, when you mention shove the boxes, then it might be the fewest number of shovings of the box is good play or something.
So and that goes back to my comment about the goals. So I know what I'm trying to do, in that I'm trying to get the box onto the thing on the end, but I don't know, as you said, in what way am I trying to do that, right? Fastest time, fewest deaths, fewest shoves. Yeah. So I think
it's completely binary, right? Like you either do the level or you don't, as opposed to do it well or do it badly.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So I fell off the side then, right? Not the box.
Yeah.
So I think. So I think this is problematic, right? And I also think that although we've got a choice and there are an alternative risk, we've only had one example of that. So what would be a pass for goals, risks, rewards?
For that, we're saying a limited set of goals, risks, rewards, as opposed to incoherent or limited for poor, or coherent for satisfactory.
I think so. Poor would be an incoherent set.
Yeah.
And presumably below that is absent, which means there aren't any.
No serious attempt at establishing goals, risks, rewards.
So there's no serious attempt to establish rewards.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could argue that just completing the levels is a minor reward, I suppose. So I don't think it's totally absent, but it feels like it's not even. That's not even at the poor level.
Yeah. Yeah, like if they had 100 levels and every level was relatively straightforward, then maybe you could say just, oh yeah, the reward is how many of these levels can you get to before you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, quite.
But these levels are all complicated enough that you can't just blitz through several of them.
So we've got one example of probably maybe at the sort of pass level for risk, but we've only got one example of it. And the goals we said are unclear. So I think this is going to be probably down at the poor.
Yeah.
Gone. So now the thing is I've got to get around it. Oh my life. Yeah. It's one of those games.
The thing I'm terrified of is if it resets, do you end up with the barrier put back in place?
Certainly. Let's not. Should we try?
I don't think we should try. I don't think we can afford to try.
Okay. What's next?
After goals, risks, rewards, we want to look at pacing.
Pacing.
Pacing, we go all the way from absent would be pacing is flat, all the way up to praiseworthy, tension rises over time coherently and well. We're probably looking maybe pass or poor. So pass is tension somewhat rises over time. Poor is variation in tension, but no coherent pattern.
So I would say that, yeah, it feels it feels roughly there, doesn't it? Because if we think about it, so I had the first map. So it's interesting. This map's a good example, right? Because the left-hand side has this lovely barrier all the way around it. So basically, it's like the safety rails. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they should have done really is given me a level with a barrier around it, They did do that. But then the next level should probably been a level with the barrier around most of it, and then maybe like an L-shaped bridge that I have to negotiate between the two sections, right?
I was thinking maybe a bridge that sort of starts out wide and gets narrower and narrower and narrower.
So something like that. Yeah. And then you might introduce a kind of a barrier versus a bridge or something like that, right? And so I kind of think that they've got some attempts to vary that Jesus Christ, but they're
I'm kind of inclined to say the tension somewhat right.
It's back again.
I was going to say the tension maybe rises, but it rises for the wrong reasons, which is that by the time you've invested that much time into playing the game, it's tense because you don't want to have to put up with doing the start of the level again.
Yeah. So I think it's again there is something here, so it's not absent, right? So what was a poor again?
For a poor variations in tension, but no coherent pattern over time, which seems about right.
I think so. Maybe, I mean they do get more challenging over time with more stuff in them. So maybe halfway to a pass.
Yeah.
It's not like each level is more complex.
Yeah, that's the thing, really. Each level has more stuff going on, but the more stuff doesn't actually necessarily drive the pacing in a particularly satisfying way.
Okay, so where does that put us for the next one?
Okay, next we're going to look at the tutorial. So we want to see, do we have gradual explanation of gameplay and controls revealed as you play, or maybe only some explanation of gameplay and controls as you play?
So this is an interesting one, right? Because there's no explicit explanation. So again, when I first saw it, that very first level, I thought, oh, they're gonna do something really interesting here. They're going to do the whole thing through play, right?
Yeah.
Which would be, the high end of what you would do with the tutorial.
Yeah.
But the problem is they don't even explain the controls, so that's a bit of a red flag straight away. And then we've already talked about in the information design the fact that it's not quite sure, the colours don't seem to mean anything. So you could argue with this one, for example, that I don't have any. It's forcing me to go down there and press the button before I go through the wall. But then again, why do it there? Why not do one? Why not just do a corridor with a button right in front of the door, and that would teach me that the button opens the door?
Yeah.
Right?
I think it'd probably be okay to have that little side branch if it wasn't just so hard to achieve it. Because, the way the controls have set up means that we don't really want to invest the time it takes to go and discover that, right? And for the tutorial, if it's convenient to discover it, we can take the time it takes to discover it. If it's inconvenient, it feels like a chore.
And also, they're kind of cheating a little bit in that what's sort of happening is, because there's only, this level, for example, there's only one way to complete the level.
Yeah.
So, oh, Christ.
Yeah, you're not learning to make decisions. You're learning to do the things that they are putting on the table in front of you one at a time because that's what you've been told to do.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily bad, but it doesn't necessarily drive the meaningful play.
Yeah. So okay. So what would a pass be for the tutorial?
Yeah. So that's the gradual explanation of gameplay and controls revealed as you play. And I suppose the mechanics are revealed as you play, whether or not there's actually an explanation of those things as you play.
I don't think there is. What's poor?
Some explanation of gameplay and controls, but below that, absent no serious attempt at a tutorial element.
What tutorial element is there?
Only the fact that you don't get to see the extra mechanics until you have resolved the first ones. Oh, what happened there? You got reset, the box didn't. and the door came back.
That is one way in which I think it's a little bit buggy.
Yeah.
They'll sometimes do that. Yeah, I think that kind of they've got a nod here through their level design. That first level is clearly trying to teach you to go to the button.
Yeah.
So maybe that, and this one here where I've got to press the button to go through. Maybe that's enough to say it's a poor.
Yeah.
Rather than completely absent. Yeah, there's really not much attempt to do it.
If it was maybe like, if these first 4 levels were, what they are, and you just have to do the thing that they push you to do, then the future levels, there's a lot more decisions, and it's more about combining the mechanics that you've seen and figuring out which buttons to press to open which doors in which order, and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then it might get a little bit more grace.
The box is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so what's the next one?
Next we'll be talking about core dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, what do they say their core dynamic is?
So here we have, they've written, we believe our game possesses the core dynamics of problem solving as well as trial and error dynamic, which isn't quite what was presented in the lectures. Later on they say, level 1 demonstrates our most core mechanic with the ability to move a box around the level. So that's hinting at what I think we're trying to get out of them here. This is clearly a spatial reasoning game to some extent.
So it's obviously a spatial reasoner, and it's a shame that they haven't identified that, because it's pretty clear. There's not an awful lot of spatial reasoning going on, because
you don't actually decide things, right?
Yeah,
you don't decide which bit of space to use.
Yeah, so let's put it this way, right? If they put a timer on it, it would immediately become race to the end, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so little puzzling to do. Without the timer, the only thing to do is to solve the level, it becomes spatial reasoning, but there's hardly anything there. So I would say that they do have a mechanic. It's not really muddied by other things. They've not got destruction or collection or anything. But there's very few mechanics or design that supports it.
Yeah, that almost exactly describes the pass mark says an attempt at a core dynamic, but not well supported by the primary mechanics.
I think that's what we've got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be dropping down into an attempt at a core dynamic, but the primary mechanic detracts from it. There is only one mechanic. It doesn't necessarily detract, it just isn't given room to breathe or to do its thing. Okay, so for feedback and the response to their feedback, they said they chatted with us, and their feedback was to make sure that they gradually introduced each mechanic in a new level, which broadly speaking they have done. That seems fine. And then they say, by designing the game this way, player is encouraged to think about each level and what the solution is, rather than being handheld, which they've tried to do, but actually detracts a bit from their tutorial, right? They've explicitly not tutorialized things.
Yeah, I don't think they've understood that properly.
Yeah.
So I think explaining the mechanics gradually, or introducing them gradually through different levels, yes, that works, and it does make it better. Although the problem is the game's so hard that it then becomes boring, because you've got no mechanics in the early levels, and you're spending ages just trying to solve them, right?
In particular, they're suffering from, they're saying in their notes that they combine all of the previous mechanics into a 6th final level, and hopefully we'd get to see that 6th final level, but we're struggling so much to get there that we might not manage it, and we don't even have a level select screen, so we can jump ahead and just see what that level does without solving the previous ones.
I have a feeling we're not going to get there in time, because although I think I could probably eventually do this, we're just going to run out of time in the Let's Play. So yeah, that's a shame. So did they have any other feedback?
No, that's what they focused on.
Okay, so I would say that the first one is kind of, they've been partially successful. It's sort of worked. it's a very direct interpretation of what they were asked to do, but that's fine. And then the second one I don't think has worked particularly well. What would a pass be for feedback?
Feedback was addressed, but the changes have had limited success.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are, right?
Yeah.
The first one slightly more than the second, but so I think what they needed to do was to make those earlier levels, if they're building up to like a really difficult final level, that's fine. Oh, crikey. But they need to make those early levels really simple, like very straightforward. I mean, look, I've just got to push it along a straight path, and this is like the most dangerous bit of the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main thing. Like, if the bit about pushing the box was as simple as it clearly is supposed to be, everything else almost falls into place. There's still some bits about, meaningful decisions lacking and so on. But the fact that we can't interact with the primary controls well enough means that we can't really explore almost any of the rest of the bits that we're looking for.
Fallen off. Oh, I'm back on.
Oh.
Right. I'm gonna do my best to see. We're not even on level 6, so This is only gonna be level 5. But yeah, yes. So okay. So I mean, in principle.
Now we're soft locked.
Yeah, that happened last time as well. So okay, I think we're going to have to leave it there because we just don't have time to do it. I mean, in principle, I think they've got the foundations for quite a good game. I think it looks very striking. It works in terms of its sort of aesthetic, and the core idea, you've got to push a box around and avoid obstacles and everything, is fine. But they needed to have more obstacles. Their level design needs to be much better thought through. They need to introduce things much more gradually and simply to begin with, and they really needed to think about that risk reward. The risk reward thing is the problem, right? If you come up with a mechanism for doing risk and reward, then that gives you the tools to build interesting levels, right? But if you have no risk reward, then actually it becomes very difficult to build interesting levels.
Yeah.
So the simple example would be if you had a timer here and made it race to the end, right? Then straight away you're like, okay, I can give people 2 different paths, and one path, has different types of obstacles on, and then they can make a decision. Or I can have, I might start thinking about collectibles, which do things like give me some more time back, or maybe speed up, or let me throw the box, or I don't know, all sorts of things.
If you've got multiple boxes, do you push them both in a big sort of conga line, or do you do them one at a time? Anything like that.
That's right, yeah. So and I feel like there's so much unexplored in the 4 levels we've seen, and maybe they do come together, and maybe level 6 is like all the obstacles, multiple boxes. I don't know, but yeah, and just unfortunately difficulty way too hard for what we needed for a kind of a short let's play. But the foundations of the game. You could work on this and build it up into something, definitely. Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to our next game? Okay, so our next game is called Obstacle Odessey. So we had a special request for this one to play it in Unity, so we're playing the actual project here. Hopefully it will work okay. Oh, there we go. So it's quite loud, so I'm going to reduce the volume a little bit. Okay, so here we are. We've got a nice menu screen. Start, quit, obstacle, Odessey at the top. So I guess we hit start. So I like the look, nice and clean.
Certainly very consistent look. The fonts and the colours and everything all point in the same direction. Even the little reticle in the middle of the screen is quite appealing and light and everything else. Very
nice use of colour. They've got uniform colour there. Iconography is good. I like the fact that the icons for your health kind of are in the same sort of style as the little icons they've got for the tutorial. So I've got traditional FPS with space to jump. Okay, that's good.
And I like that the walls and floor have that really defined color contrast. It keeps you oriented.
It does, absolutely. And yeah, and a good texture on the floor so you can kind of see what you're doing and where you're going. Here we go. So I presume I have to, so to progress I have to jump. So, and it says I can pick up the block by clicking. So that's come up to show me. Okay, so I can pick up a block and drop it again. Well, our previous game would have been a lot easier if I could have done that. So I'm guessing I need to just place it to jump over here. I can't jump over the wall on my own.
Yeah.
So I presume I can jump with the box. Okay.
Right. Was that an object or was that a power up?
That's no, like a collectible maybe?
Yeah.
A red box.
Is that danger or is that target or something?
No.
Oh.
I just died.
I think that was a you died.
Into it.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't touch the box or you can't go near the box?
I think it was touch the box. What I have to do here, unless I'm supposed to take this box with me and do something with it in some way.
When you're standing on the wall, you could probably pick it up again.
So I'm wondering. Oh, hang on. Pick that up.
There's nothing on screen. Is there an audio cue that indicates what you've just got?
It was like a little sort of bling noise, like a little bell going off.
Broadly a happy sound.
Oh, hang on. There we go. So interestingly, I couldn't even see that before.
Yeah.
So that's a bit unfortunate that you can't see down there from here. I thought this was just a wall.
Yeah, if there'd been a better spotlight kind of illuminating up there to draw your eye to it.
But that's... Oh, I can move... Oh! It's the light that's death, not the box.
Right, so there's a dead zone, and you can't walk in the dead zone. They've got these overhead lights that look like nice texture for the general lighting. I don't think they've got a model up there that looks like a spotlight or looks like a... the whole thing was a cone or made it clear that there's a thing above you that is creating that light.
Yes. So I think, and it looked to me like the light was just coming from the box, although it does have a quite distinct shadow in fairness. I think, I can see what they've done there. So they put the box in the light, so I have to go and get it. But then the problem is I die. So I then, I'm not quite sure it's doing what they think it's doing. And then
so this dodge some spotlights.
I'm guessing I can't jump through the spotlights. But
yep. That's a weird shaped box.
Oh, I've got to go up there. Does that do anything?
I imagine that tells you to put the box on it, unless it is just a small box.
Yeah, I thought it was a small box, but no, I think I just have to put the box on it. So the other thing that's a bit weird is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but... So I do not feel like I'm standing next to that box, but I can pick it up.
So I think that might be intentional.
How far away can I be and pick the box up, do you think? Oh, would you look at that?
Yeah. So grab might have been the wrong keyword to use for them.
It's a bit more like a sort of aspect
is, in their game notes, they use the word telekinesis, is what they're going for.
So, okay, so I think we figured out in the end, but I think they could have done a little bit of a better job to kind of telegraph that. Here we go. So we're in here. So I've got boxes behind there, door, I've got a box behind there.
No, that's a box placement spot, I think.
So if I pick that up and put it on the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tell you what I really like is that the boxes light up with this glowing texture. That's real nice. I think the box receptacles, it would be nice if they weren't glowing, because if they weren't glowing, it makes it obvious that you need to put the glowing thing on the not glowing thing, and then they're connected, or then they're complete.
Or they glowed when you put it down or something. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Here we go. So we got into this one. There's the different heights. So I can see what they're getting at here. So if I get my big box, there.
Yeah, so now we do have different size and shape boxes, which makes the box receptacles look more confusing.
Yeah. Although I quite like it as a little puzzle just to get past.
It's a nice puzzle, and uses the angles, uses the fact that they're building in 3D, and uses the physics engine. It's nice.
I'm guessing that's a button that if I stand on it opens that. Oops, because of the colours.
Yeah. The colours match, and the things are both lit up with illumination. Is that timed, or is that you're going to need to leave a box on it?
I think it's timed.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm in here. I get this box. I don't need to get the box. I keep forgetting. Although there's no way for me to move the boxes towards me. So if I pick them up from miles away, it's actually that opens that door.
Yeah. So yeah, like we'll see maybe whether or not there's level design that plays with the fact that you can't bring them towards or away from yourself, and you're kind of pivoting them around like a crane.
I think this almost does it already, actually, because I'm having to drop them to pick them up at the right kind of distance.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that lines up with the laser beams being things that you can't walk through, therefore you need to position yourself in the correct place at the same time as... So that thing there is a U standard on a button.
Yeah, I think so. So do you think I have to stack the crates to block?
If you stack two of them, you can block the beam.
Yeah. Oh dear.
You stepped into the light.
Oh, I'm right back to the beginning. I run out of things. Okay, well, while I'm doing this, I kind of know what I'm doing. Shall we go through this mark scheme? Starting off with the presentation.
So
I have to say,
graphics, audio, and information design.
Never figured out what that was, did we?
No.
It just goes, boo, you pick me up, well done. So I have to say, so just from graphics, I think it looks lovely, very consistently done. I think it's quite impactful almost, actually. I would say it's up at the sort of excellent level for graphics.
It reminds me so much of Portal that it invokes the same sort of feelings of telling a lot of story through very simple visual elements, which is really nice.
Absolutely. So that's really well done. And the sound effects, I mean, they're not quite as arresting, but they're perfectly fine. So I've got a kind of like a nice tense soundtrack going on. I've got door effects and the doors open. I've got noises when I stand on the boxes. So yeah, I think all in all that's kind of doing really well. And then we've got the information design. So I've got my health, we've got the boxes, we've got some of the color coding. It's a little confused. So we've got so that color matches that door. The only thing I think we were a bit confused about was the boxes and the box buttons look a bit the same. It feels like, but that's a niggle really. So I think this is up at the sort of what would it be for excellent?
So excellent means impactful, complete, effective, and appealing. Which I think we're pretty much there. There was the collectible that didn't seem to do anything. We're not quite sure what it is. If that's important, we haven't been told enough about it. But
yeah,
I think all of the core elements are doing what they're supposed to.
Yes. Absolutely. So the problem is it's not actually that hard, but I'm just getting a bit sloppy because I know what I'm doing. So.
So yeah, do we think excellent there.
I think excellent presentation. It's really nice.
Yeah. Okay.
So that takes us to burst into that early on. Oops. Don't do
that. Next is meaningful play. So the mechanics, the controls, and the bugs. How do the controls feel?
Oh, I put them alongside, haven't I? It's coming out of there. The controls are pretty good. So the only thing I would say is that the extents of my own body are a bit vague.
Yeah, I guess you don't know when you're in the spotlight.
Or the laser. Oh, that's annoying. So that's my only complaint. But actually, otherwise the controls feel pretty good. Obviously, very standard FPS type things, but that's okay. So I guess the other thing we're looking at here is, what mechanics are there. So we've got the jumping on the boxes, we've got the spotlights, we've got the laser beams, and we've got these sort of platform things. There's reasonable amount of stuff going on.
And they interact in interesting ways, right? Like the fact that the laser beams can be blocked by boxes, I think is core to why this works.
Right, because it's it kind of feels coherent and cohesive and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So excellent B for play.
We would have fun complementary mechanics, intuitive controls, higher complexity, no bugs. That sounds like it in a nutshell, right?
Yeah. And it is fun to play. Kind of, I feel like I'm definitely engaged. I'm definitely thinking about what I'm doing. I said, if there's a problem, it's because, like I said, I'm becoming careless.
Yeah.
So, what's next on our list?
We want to go to level design. So that's goals, risks, rewards first.
Let's talk about goals. What are you doing?
Yeah, you're moving forward, but it's not really clear, why you need to get from chamber to chamber.
Yeah. Like you said, I kind of know what I'm doing.
Oh, are you going to have enough time, or is that?
I think it's just tight. It's just tight. Oops. Try just.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of stuff there. There's a lot of boxes in there.
Mm.
Can I get it?
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Can you move and hold the box at the same time? I'm wondering if you could just use it as a shield.
Interesting thought. That's some good lateral thinking, that is. Yeah. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Might be a little difficult to do the controls.
Yeah. Don't think it's going to be that forgiving.
Yeah.
Blimey. Yeah, sorry, where were we? So goals, risks, and rewards.
Risk and rewards. Yeah, I guess the question is, what does risky play look like here? Let's maybe start with rewards. What are you rewarded with, and what do you get more of if you manage to risk something?
I kind of feel so in a sense this goes back to the problem with the goals, right? So because the goals are ambiguous, it's difficult to know rewards might be, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. You've got lives, so clearly, you want to do this without dying any number of times. Like getting to the end with 3 lives left is more of a reward than getting to the end with 1 life left.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's some there's always the implicit nice to do it fast, nice to do it smoothly things, but they're not emphasized.
So I think the other thing that they've got wrong, it's not terrible, but is you restart right back at the beginning.
Yeah, they could have had checkpoints that just...
I think they needed to have some checkpoints. Because
they feel like they've got some pretty clear breakpoints where levels would be.
Yes.
So it would have been, nice to maybe even just separate them out with a main menu, or just have the ability to go to a main menu and say spawn at level 2, spawn at level 3.
So this feels like a checkpoint, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So okay. So I think the goals are a little bit ambiguous. And as a result of that, it's not clear. It's not clear what the risks and rewards are.
It's a bit similar to the last one, where the only thing you get like proper feedback on is you successfully complete a level or a section when you do that, which works reasonably well. But in order for that to be its own reward, then there needs to be quite a lot of them for there to be any gradation between completing all of them and completing some of them.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, and what about the risks? So we've got kind of... Well, so the whole point about the risk rewards is not only that they're clear, but that there's some choices. What are my choices here? Oops. My choices here? Because it looks to me... I mean, are there multiple ways of solving the levels?
I doubt it. I think the risk is just go fast and accidentally step in the spotlight, which is less a proper risk reward and more of just a smoothness of skill. Can a skilled player do it better?
So I think they might have some problems here. I kind of... Oh, I've done that again. So in general, I really like this, but I think they maybe have not done quite enough. On the risk rewards to make it work.
Yeah, I think that, if we're comparing this to Portal, which it has the same sort of DNA as, Portal establishes, from a narrative point of view, a goal like you need to escape this testing facility. And if we had the same thing here, where if we assume we're trying to escape, then we want at the end of each level something that indicates that we are closer to escaping, that that we're actually progressing in some larger way.
I'm quite sorry for them that we're comparing them to Portal.
On one hand, it's cruel to do that, but also I'm meaning that as a compliment.
They do somewhat invite the comparison, right? I did that before, did I? I stacked them, did I?
I wonder whether or not you could deliberately let the physics sort of put them at a jaunty angle and get a bit of extra height out of them.
Yeah, it's kind of... Maybe that's... Oh, damn it. These bloody things.
Yeah, so that's an information design thing. You mentioned not knowing where your own hitbox is. We haven't seen... we haven't seen a lot in way of risk reward to separate paths, the easy path and the hard path.
So I did it with one. So that feels to me like it's not intentional. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think if it was me designing this, I'd want it to be very clear that you couldn't do stuff like that.
Yeah. If the intended design is what you did before, stack two of them, move forward a bit, stack two of them in a different place, move forward a bit, and so on. Then we've slightly cheesed it.
Sure, because I think
it's just close enough that you can get away with throwing against the wall and seeing if it lands at an angle.
The other weird thing about this is if I go back here, look, I can pick this up from quite a long way away.
Yeah.
To that. Which means I could, for example, put that on there. Oh, let's open that up.
Yeah.
It's just a mess down there.
So that feels like they're trying to do a risk reward here, right? Where there's maybe an alternative path that is more risky but has some better reward, but no idea what the reward at the end of it is. it is true that there's a reward at the end of that, then it would be a risk-reward mechanic, although it's not an informed risk-reward because we don't know what we're trying to get.
So I think I messed that up because I think I need that box over here, and I can just get it afterwards. So again, it feels like I can't pick that box up without zapping myself. So
yeah. You can't get away with the shield body block technique of just holding that box in front of the laser and then wandering. It's a bit risky, but
it's very risky.
Yeah.
So the problem I've got is, can I sidle down there? Do you think? Because if I move towards it, it sort of rolls about. Oh,
yeah.
So I think the problem we've got is, or this is symptomatic of a problem where, because it's not quite clean enough, it's ambiguous as to whether or not things would work. I'm it up a little bit, but so okay. Let's think about the goals, risks, rewards again. So basically, what we're saying is they've tried to put some of that stuff in here. Okay, but it's kind of ambiguous as to why you'd want to go certain ways. It's not entirely clear what your goal is. So you need to finish, but am I trying to finish quickly? Am I trying to get those collectible things?
Yeah. In particular, if those are collectibles, then we should really see, an opportunity to go and get more collectibles by going through dodging lasers.
It should be telling us. So I think that's a bit problematic. So what would a satisfactory be for that?
Then we would have a coherent set of goals, risks, rewards. By comparison, a pass is limited set of goals, risks, rewards.
I kind of feel it's almost more like a pass. Because we've not really seen any really clear, genuine choices, right?
Yeah.
It's just that room where I keep getting stuck.
Yeah.
It's not clear why I'd want to go down one path or the other.
Yeah, I think they probably would have the coherent set of goals, risk, rewards if, let's say, those two different paths told you ahead of time what was at the end of them, right?
I think they just go to the same place.
Okay, yeah, so in that case, it's not really risk reward because you're just picking whichever path is easiest.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fine to give somebody choices as about how which challenge do you want to tackle, right? It's kind of like an apples and oranges choice.
Yeah.
That's okay, but that's just about different types of risk. And what they're really doing is the reward bit. And that's the reason that they're struggling with the reward bit, is because the goals are not clear. So you don't know how to reward the player, right?
Yeah.
So what would a pass be?
Pass limited set of goals, risks, rewards.
It's probably there.
Yeah. Check on this level whether the entrance door closed behind you. Otherwise, you could technically pinch boxes from the previous level and.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I suppose if you were holding one while you ran through and managed to get that to happen, you might have got a bonus box. But I don't think that's the intended solution.
So again, I'm messing around here, but this doesn't feel like the intended solution either. That
yeah.
Problem here is I can't. Right. Okay. So what's next on our list?
Pacing next.
So. Oh. It's making that harder than it seemed.
Oh, you're back into the light.
So annoying. Restart all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, so since we're doing it again, we can talk about the pacing as we go.
So the pacing is actually not bad, I think. So we have a little obstacle to go here. We get our first kind of bit of peril, if you like, the light. Then we get kind of more of them, and I've got to navigate them carefully. And then we get our first kind of almost little puzzly bit. Oops, go through the door. And here, so So yeah, I think we're definitely going up in pacing.
Yeah.
Do you wonder? Hang on, which one's that? Ideally, you want a kind of little bit of a pacing, so a bit of pattern to your pacing. So in a sense, what you want is sort of almost like rest points or things like that between levels.
Yeah.
Sure, if I'm seeing that particularly.
There's a little element in the every time you go through a end of a level door, you get sort of the end of a section type thing, and it comes down again.
I think part of the problem is because I haven't got to the end, so I haven't seen if it accumulates with a kind of a sort of in a particularly impressive way or spectacular way. And that would give it a bit more of a pattern.
Yeah.
So we reckon we can. So we solved this. I would really like to know whether I'm solving this puzzle in the way that they intended. Because I do have to lean it up against the wall, like that.
Yeah.
Just feels a bit of a weird thing to do. I'm wondering if there's a different way of solving the puzzle that I'm messing up.
Yeah, so if we can get through there, now we've got a new level. Lighting has changed a little bit, which maybe drives the stakes up. Something new is happening.
Yeah, I feel like I've got some progress. Can I just run over those? Yes.
I like that we can see the door, and it's locked, so that gives us. That's quite good for setting the goals. We see where the door is before we finish.
Yep. Is there a thing in there?
Yeah. Collectible of some kind. It was blue, which maybe implies it was an extra life, but I don't know.
In there, maybe. Let's go up and have a look.
Yeah. This might start using the fact that you can move stuff from arbitrarily far away.
See, that isn't actually a floor; it's a jump problem.
Yeah.
So if we go back to pacing, I would say. So what would satisfactory be?
Tension clearly rises over time.
I think that's probably fair.
We'd either be going down to somewhat rises or up to rises in a coherent pattern.
So I think so here we've got another little problem. So remember I said that it was difficult to know where my extents were, as it were.
Yeah.
So here's a puzzle that uses that to be difficult. And it's like, no, probably shouldn't be drawing attention to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Irritating.
Yeah, you kind of wish you could see your own feet or something like that.
Something, yeah. Oh, actually, there's a roof on there.
So is this going to be a two-stage? Step one, you do some interaction that opens the roof, and then step two.
I found a. Did that open the door? No. What did that do? Something. There was a switch up there. I heard it go. I was messing with the. Put the box on the switch.
Yeah. Yeah, so the platform in front of you is just to be able to see or maybe control putting the thing on the switch. So if you go to the right, is there something else to interact with? Oh, it's just stand on a button and go through the door.
So is that, if I move that, is that what that did?
Did it activate it, power it, or make it accessible? Yes,
block
the barrier.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh.
I've got the block out.
Maybe clipped it. That might be because of the distance.
I think
you might have moved it more in one.
What I've now done is messed it up. Because the block's not in there anymore.
Yeah, you'd have to magically clip it back through the wall to put it on the platform.
Oops.
Unless you happen to be able to jump on the box and just dodge the puzzle that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Magic clipping. Right, okay, so now I can go over there. Yeah, so did we finish pacing? I think we said it was...
Yeah, so I think we said clearly rises over time.
Okay, so what's next?
Tutorial.
I thought the tutorial element was rather good, actually. Oh, that's a little evil look.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. It's a bit drifty. No, the tutorial is very good. I think it gave us our instructions very clearly to start with, all in a nice style that suited the game. I don't know why I think I'm sort of drifting along things.
Yeah, I thought the tutorial was pretty good. Particularly, obviously start with the box and know hazards, and then start introducing hazards. I think you got stuck slightly on seeing both box and hazard interacting before seeing hazard without box interacting.
Yes.
We could have just had one spotlight by itself that you have to walk around.
Yeah.
That's minor.
But otherwise it's been quite good.
I was very happy with the room where there were a box behind bars, so you moved it without, knowing that you didn't have to be physically touching the box. Yep. And separately, or next to it in the same room, was a box to put on a receptacle where you had to push it through lasers, and therefore you had to see the box's block lasers. Yep. That felt quite a nice way to do that.
So the controls are not perfect, and up till now it's not been a problem. But because these are sort of precision jumps, I'm struggling a lot because it's kind of very floaty, and you kind of drift along the edges of the. So if I push forward there, I'll show you what I mean. So if I push, so I'm not going left and right at all. I'm just pointing forward.
Yeah. So if you're
happens.
Facing even slightly off angle, there's not enough friction to stop you.
Yeah, so I think they've kind of
need to
be very careful to. I don't know whether we get past this level. They didn't have a level choice thing, did they?
No, the start screen just said play or exit.
So it sent me right back to the beginning for some reason.
Yeah, it's a slight issue with this particular level that you can dodge the platforming bit, but to be honest, the platforming bit really isn't the core dynamic anyway. So
the tutorial, so what would be a good?
Good says gradual explanation of gameplay and controls, fully aligned with play.
I think it's there, right? So
we might even have for excellent aligned with play and sometimes communicated through level design. I think there's some of that.
So I think if that's sufficient, I think we can go with excellent.
Yeah, let's do that. That would move us on to core dynamic.
Extents thing again. It's causing me all sorts of problems. So they've got a couple of little dynamics going on. What did they think it was?
Yeah, so they've said spatial reasoning, which absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
They elaborate on the lasers and the security cameras and so on, supporting the spatial aspect, which I agree with them. That sounds very good. The timed pressure plates force the player to envision a clear path to the exit as they're limited on time. Yeah, I quite like that as well, that the timing isn't here a race to the end thing as so much it is inviting you to plan your spatial puzzle.
I think that works quite well. So the only thing I would... I'm just going to shut if I don't hurry up. How much time I got? That's the one that's...
Yeah.
It's getting me...
There's not a good margin for error there.
I wonder if... Trying to fool me? Can I get past there like that? All right. Well, we may get back there again and have a look. So what I was going to say was there's the one limitation I think they've got is that at the high levels, what we'd like to see is more core dynamics that support the key one. And I don't think we see that particularly, right? So we've got kind of looks like there might be a collection thing going on, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
But there's no, it is quite a pure puzzle. puzzler.
I think to some extent the interactions between boxes blocking laser beams and things is an interaction that produces a new mechanic to support the spatial reasoning, even without not explicitly creating a new mechanic.
So what would be?
There could have been more. There might have been ways where some of the boxes could form a bridge, and you could then hide under them to dodge the spotlights or whatever. There's maybe other opportunities, but I'm not sure we needed necessarily to see that.
Interesting. It's a little bit buggy as well. Like sometimes I'm appearing with the box right there. Sometimes the boxes go through walls, but nothing.
Yeah, if you move them fast at a large distance, they'll clear.
Particularly game breaking. Okay, so for core dynamic, what would be a good?
Well, good says clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanics.
I think it's definitely there, isn't it?
Yeah, the core dynamic is clear. The primary mechanics certainly support it. If we were going up to excellent, then we need supported by an integrated set of mechanics. And the question is, do we have enough of them that we'd consider it an integrated set?
Getting there, isn't it?
It really is close. I think we're maybe halfway between.
Yeah, I think halfway between the two is fair. They've done a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that brings us on to the feedback. What have they said? Initially, we were over-ambitious. They had grand plans to include all sorts of things in addition to their main thing. They wanted to do evading, combat, puzzle solving, some other things. And so the feedback was focus on your core dynamic, and I think they have certainly done that.
Quite successful, actually.
Yeah. They say the reward system they struggled with initially. So they do say we've got collecting coins here, so that must be what our gold thing is.
Yeah.
Although, is it collecting coins? We might have collected coin.
We had one other, didn't we? That's
one extra one.
It was kind of hidden away.
Yeah.
But then that's weird as well. It's like you don't normally hide them. That's another dynamic. Oh, that's another dynamic again, right? Where you're kind of hunting and hiding things. It
doesn't support the risk reward if you don't know that you're going to get the reward. So they've said that they've added 5 collectible orbs in inconvenient locations and unique routes to increase risk to reward. So I think they've made a good attempt there, but haven't quite.
I don't think they quite pulled it off, have they? They sort of
because we don't know that those rewards are there. Then they don't actually know what we're risking or what we're getting rewarded
exactly. With. They need to be integrated into the goals better.
Yeah.
So what would? Because I'm rushing now, trying to get through. So what would be a satisfactory for feedback?
Yeah. So. Oops. Satisfactory feedback was addressed, and the changes have been somewhat successful. And they've certainly addressed the keep it simple. They also mention the feedback to make sure that their tutorial demonstrates the mechanics one at a time, and they've done that as well.
So that has been quite. So maybe it's halfway between satisfactory and good, in that there are a couple of elements that they've actually done quite nicely. I mean, it's a relatively straightforward interpretation, but they've done it well. And there's one or two things where they've tried to do something and it hasn't quite pulled off.
Yeah.
I'm interested as well to know, watching me play this, whether they are surprised that I'm finding it difficult for certain things. And again, as a puzzle game, sometimes the actual skill required to execute the puzzles is overlooked. And I wonder a little bit whether they've done that here, because I'm finding stuff that's actually should be quite simple, like walking up the stairs, right, is actually quite hard. Intrigued to know whether I'm actually solving this puzzle correctly. It feels very odd leaving a box precariously balanced on the wall. Doesn't feel right to me at all. But interesting. Okay. All right, so I think that's about it. We've gone through everything. Any final thoughts on this one?
No, I think overall it's a good looking, appealing game with some interesting choices. A few places where they could reinforce those dynamics.
Yeah.
But overall, a really good job.
I think I agree with you. Really nice looking game, well executed. Just a little bit more development with the level design, and especially the risk reward bit and how that's integrated into level design. And I think it would have elevated it even more. But yeah, good job.
And with anything, more playtesting at the end, just making sure that some of those controls are as smooth as they could be.
Okay, so our next game is called Executioner. Called Investicutioner. So Executioner is what they've called the file. So, all right, Investicutioner. All right, so I'm presuming I'm some sort of detective executioner. Okay, got a menu. Play, level select, options, quit. So what's options? Oh, it's just mouse sensitivity. Level select. Okay, that's quite good. So I can jump around if I don't get very far. Should we go? Let's try.
Yeah, let's see what it's like.
I've just twitched the mouse automatically, but there's no instructions. I'm presuming it's WAS to me, right? Yeah. Oh, and I've got some sounds. There's no audio. There's no soundtrack, but footsteps. I've got a shadow. I get a feeling I know what I am. I'm a lozenge. Right. Okay. So there's some stuff here. Can I? Oh, I get space to jump.
Is there instructions on that table? A piece of paper in the corner, or that's just texture?
E. Oh, okay. E.
Kind of small, but.
All right, and I've got a thing.
Managed to get it. Now the question is, how do you get whatever info's on it?
I just hit space, enter. No, I can't obviously use the mouse because the mouse is steering around. What's that?
Hit E again? E to pick it up and E to interact with it or something?
I think.
Okay.
I can have a look. What's it say there?
Maybe we'll use it later.
Suspected to be guilty. I see. I can toggle it. So, I'm guessing this is some. So, what do I call it? Investicutioner. So I have to. So what I'm guessing I have to do, just from the name, is somehow figure out if this person is guilty or innocent.
Yeah.
And then this, I guess, is a lever. Yeah. So I can then say what they are, and then either release them or presumably just jolly. And as this is level 1, you'd imagine that it was really simple. So I'm guessing that piece of paper says something like, "He's the one what did it."
Yeah.
But how do I access it? Let's try the number keys. Oh, there we go. Okay. 1 and 2. So one doesn't do anything. 2 brings it up. Or F to inspect.
So it was F like zooming in?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay. All right. I don't have a problem with what they're doing, but why didn't they tell us the controls?
Yeah, we need better tutorial than that. But let's see how the mechanics interact.
A sheet of paper containing written clues about the suspects, along with an info log below that updates in real time as you learn more information. The suspect on the gallows is guilty. Press E on the lever next to the suspect to execute them. Well, that seems a bit mean. Suspected to be guilty. Well, presumably I have to toggle that if I just hit the lever. Surprising.
From what I think I've heard in the labs, the thing on the left is just for you to help keep track of what's going on in your mind. Like,
I see.
So later levels be complicated enough that you might be unsure about some of them and be updating your beliefs.
Right. All right. Well, let's go and pick this up then. So E, and then was it 2, and then the suspect on the gallows is innocent. Press E on the rope above them to free them. Okay. Okay, next. 2, all right, and there's, okay, this is intriguing. So if I read this, I do wish there was a better way of doing this. Very clumsy. Feels clumsy.
To be honest, as soon as you pick it out, I don't really understand why it's not just in the bottom corner in your hand.
No,
anyway.
It's a bit strange. Because I quite like that. I quite like the fact it's there and you can refer to it and then you can look at it. There is exactly one guilty suspect. On this table is truth serum. Pick it up with E and then inspect it with F to find out what it does. You can use tools like truth serum on suspects while looking at them with E. Force them to reveal that innocent. Okay, so we know we have one guilty suspect. All right, so if we pick up that,
we can truth serum either of them, I guess, and then we know the other one. So that's why we don't just see the note immediately, because we could be holding something else.
Although it is odd that 1 doesn't do anything. So 2 is the paper and 3 is the bottle.
So 1 is hold nothing, but I'm not sure why holding nothing is a thing you want to do.
Yes, you're right. All right, hold F to inspect. A potion can be used on a suspect to force them to feel they're innocent or guilty with certainty. So if I hold it and go and use it on one of these suspects.
Yeah.
So I've used it, and now what? Oh, suspect 0 is innocent. Okay, so this appears up here. So if they're innocent, then this person must be guilty. So let's hang this person. Free this person. I don't get any. Oh, it says on. I can't move to see what it says, but I don't get any feedback. So
yeah, it'd be quite nice if that log was printed just on the canvas here and go. Just because as you say, when you finish, you don't get a chance to move anymore and inspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So this one says there are exactly 2 guilty suspects. A bag of golden coins that can be used to bribe a suspect to the role of a random other suspect. Guilty suspects always lie. Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing one always tells the truth, one always lies kind of.
Yeah, it's like the Sphinx thing. So I've got a bag of golden coins used to bribe a suspect to play the role of a random other suspect. And I've got 2 golden coins.
Yeah.
So that comes up.
Presumably you're bribing 2 different people, because if you bribe the same person twice, you don't get anything more useful. And the options are either you ask 2... Well, there's 2 guilty, so you're definitely going to get a lie from someone. You may get 2 lies, or you may get a truth and a lie.
Well, let's just try it, right? So I'm going to use this one.
And then you probably have to go back.
Suspect 0 accuses suspect 1 of being guilty.
Yeah. Which results in them being different alignments, regardless of whether they're telling the truth.
Is that true?
Like, if suspect 0 is guilty, then he's lying about 1 being guilty. So 1 is
innocent.
And if
I see what you mean. Because he
always
1
is
lies.
innocent, he's telling the truth, and 1 is guilty.
Let's try this one. Suspect 1 accuses suspect 0 of being guilty.
Yeah, okay, so those pieces of info are redundant. They're both telling us that 1 and 0 are on opposite teams.
Okay.
We might have got unlucky with what the random selection of the bribe is.
Yeah, so here's an interesting question. So if I fail and come back, do you think it'd be the same people who are guilty?
I would imagine that they get re-randomized every time.
So, all right, well, okay, so we know one of them is guilty and 1 isn't. So let's say this one's guilty.
It means that we do know the one we haven't tested is definitely guilty, because the scenario has 2 guilty and 1 innocent.
Yeah, we'll get rid of that one, and we'll get rid of that one. Yeah. And it says up here, we executed suspect 1, we executed suspect 2, so we free that one.
And we got it right?
I have no idea.
Well, 3 out of 3.
So. Oh, 3 out of 3. Oh, so that's the feedback. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So now I've got the truth serum and I've got the bag of thing. Which one was it? Oh no! See there. That's now 4 to bring up that.
Oh.
Very odd.
It got some weird memory thing where it keeps track of how many things you were holding in the previous level and then keeps adding stuff on the end.
So we've got 2 guilty suspects. So if we go and use one of these, we give this to this person here. So they said accuses suspect 1 of being innocent. So if I go and talk to suspect 1 and give them the truth serum, suspect 1 is guilty. So therefore suspect 0 must be guilty as well. So these are the 2 guilty ones.
Yeah.
There we go. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. It's a very grim way to do this kind of puzzle, isn't it?
Right, one thing I'd like to test at some point is if you have already executed or released one of the people, will the bribes ever randomly point at them?
Yeah.
You might be able to do more interesting manipulation where you figure out one person's alignment, free them or execute them, then use your info and it has to point at the remaining person.
So we don't know how many guilty suspects there are.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So we've got two of these, whatever they are, 2 bags of bribery.
2 bribes.
Well, let's go and bribe this person for a start. So we bribe them. Suspect 0 accuses suspect 2 of being guilty. So let's go and do the truth serum on suspect 2.
Yeah. To go back to the board.
Board says suspect 2 is innocent. So that means suspect 2 is definitely innocent and suspect 0 is definitely guilty. So we'll get rid of them. Off they go. Marvellous. And then I've got I've got truth serum left. So I know. Hang on a minute. So
that's true.
So the bribe
suspect 2 around, because if you ask him, he should only be able to tell you about suspect 1, and he's innocent and therefore telling us the truth.
And he'll tell the truth, right? So let's find out.
And note that your piece of paper seems to also have a copy of the log. If you want.
Yes, you're right. Suspect 2 accuses suspect 1 of being innocent. So we know suspect 2 is innocent, therefore they'd be innocent as well. So oops, wrong one. Almost. There we go. So we'll do that one.
We do need to mess up the solution and test how it feeds back for us. But,
okay, what's that? That's interesting. Looks like handcuffs.
It looks like handcuffs.
F to inspect. A pair of divine handcuffs can be used on 2 suspects at once. If both suspects have the same role, when one of them is executed, the other will also be executed. Otherwise, the cuffs are broken. Oh, okay. So we can execute one, and if the other one is innocent, okay, got you.
Yeah, it's a test someone's alignment, but only at the moment that you commit to the alignment of someone else.
Yeah, there's at least 1 guilty suspect, and we get fake cuffs.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we give the truth serum to this person here,
sure,
they're guilty. So what we need to do
to someone else
is we can cuff them to somebody else. If we cuff that person to that person,
there's only one other. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Suspects are now bound with fake cuffs. All right, so
we want to execute the one that's guilty.
Got a 2. All right.
And the other one must have also been guilty and got executed at the same time. Nice.
So how many levels? There were quite a few levels, weren't there?
I think 16 was the number I remembered.
Let's go for a bit longer. There we go. What's this? There are 2 guilty suspects. So if I use this and I bribe this one.
Yep.
So suspect 0 accuses suspect 1 of being innocent. So
1 and 0 are opposite alignments, which means there's no point linking them, because if you link them, you'll execute one and the other one won't die.
So, but I've only got divine cuffs now, so presumably I have to cuff these 2.
Yeah, cuff the unknown one to either of the others.
Yeah.
Then we will have to guess on executing.
And then it's a guess, isn't it?
I think so.
1 and 2 are now bound with fake cuffs. So if I assume, well, if he's, hang on a second. So if he's innocent, well, he won't be lying, then, will he? So if he's innocent, then this one's innocent. But if he's guilty,
no.
So they're not opposite. So So if he's innocent, this one's innocent. If he's guilty, this one's guilty.
Yeah. So you're told I think you're told there's at least 1 guilty, Oh yeah. So I was thinking you could execute 2. If 1 dies, then you need to kill 0 as well.
There's the fake
But
cuffs. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think
If it's 1 and 0 that are both guilty, we don't know whether 2 is.
Suspect of being innocent. So either these two are both innocent or they're both guilty.
Yeah.
Basically, which doesn't really help us. We don't know anything about them, but let's just do this. There you go. Oh, so that one's innocent.
Yeah. In which case, 0.
If that one's innocent. That one must be innocent.
Yeah.
So 2 out of 3. I think we just hung somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what happens if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can carry on. We got my life, there's millions of them. But let's start going through the
Maxine. Let's
exactly
start with quality of presentation, including graphics, audio, and information design.
So the graphics are pretty nice. So I think in general the graphics work fine, right? So there's 1 or 2 slight inconsistencies. So like the icons down the bottom are obviously different looking, but you might get away with that because they're icons in the rest of the real world. The font up here could be better, could be a bit more thematic, but it's all fine. It's all full of relatively consistent and makes sort of sense. There's no music, which is a bit of a shame because I think a nice background track would have been good, and you could have changed the music up once you started making decisions or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say about the music?
Are there triggers on using any of the consumables?
Yeah, fine. Well, there's footsteps. If I use, hang on a minute. Let's use the truth serum. Use the truth serum on this chap. There we go. So yeah, there's like a glug sound. So they've got some nice sound effects. Information design. So it's not bad. I've got very clear stuff up here.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got used to it. I can kind of see the items I've got left, and it's passing me on the. So yeah, I see what you mean now about we suspect this is what those are for. So it kind of is all okay. It feels a little bit clumsy, maybe. It feels like like we've got this giant. It's like we need to give them some information about what they've done so far. So we'll put a giant board up, right? I don't know. It feels.
The info is on the sheet. I think the sheet is the most narratively satisfying place to have it. The board is convenient. I think the board is relatively good, so that you can't possibly miss the info if you don't read the sheet fully.
So here's the thing, right? So, and this kind of comes down to, and it's sort of a presentational choice, which is why I bring it up. Why is this a 3D environment?
Yeah.
This is a framework for presenting logic puzzles, right? And it's actually quite difficult to make games with logic puzzles. If you do, you're kind of you're it becomes a puzzle game, and therefore the focus really is on the puzzle itself, right?
Yeah.
So having a 3D environment adds absolutely nothing, and in fact, all it does is make it likely that you might misclick on something or make a mistake. Makes it difficult to present the information, right?
Yeah, they don't make use of the fact that you're walking around, and it happens to be the case that the consumables are on a table, and then you take them to the suspects. But
so it feels to me like it would have been much better presented as a sort of a 2D puzzle game, as a series of logic puzzles with different things. So from that point of view, the whole presentational choice of putting it in a 3D courtyard like this is a bit weird, I think.
I suppose they're trying to go for some sort of immersiveness, right? Rather than it being pure logic, it's trying to do some element of narrative thing, which is not directly what the purpose of the coursework is, but it's maybe a nice touch. Like, I suppose if it had the music and there was that kind of, they could have built a little more lent into it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely could. They could have played some sort of graveyard music when you hung somebody, or had some cheering or something when you released somebody, or there's definitely a kind of, I think in terms of information design, there's I think that's a weird choice in terms of how to present it, because it doesn't add anything. I mean, I accept what you're saying, but so I think your argument is that they haven't embraced it as much as they could, and if they'd actually gone further, it would have been more convincing, right? But I don't know. I still think it's kind of odd choice. And then again, there's no feedback for the things you're doing to kind of take advantage of that immersiveness. But I mean, but it's still fine, right? I mean, it's okay. It looks okay. The sound effects. I mean, what would a satisfactory be, for example?
So we've got workable, effective, but some inconsistencies in the presentation. Otherwise, we'd be going upwards towards professional or down towards flawed. I don't think it's particularly
workable.
Flawed.
I think workable is fine, isn't it? That's exactly what we've just described, really. So
I guess maybe the feeling you're describing is something that I've seen in like VR games, where there's a lot of VR games that are in VR just because they can say they're in VR.
That's right. Yeah, to say it's exactly that. Yeah, it kind of doesn't add anything, and if anything, potentially distracts. Right.
And I'm wondering, this game might have actually worked quite well in VR with all the rest of the atmospherics and things. Because then you're standing in front of a person who is the same height of you, and makes the decisions feel more real.
Quite possibly. Yeah. Right. Let's before we move on to the next one, let's do some stuff. Let's see if we move on to the next level. So we've used the truth theorem. So suspect 0 is guilty. All right. So let's use our thing. So they're guilty. Right. We know that. And then we've got the bribery thing and the shackles thing. So let's bring out the cuffs of whatever. No, not the cuffs. The bribery. So if they're guilty, we know they'll lie about someone else, right?
Yes.
So let's do that. So the suspect 2 have been guilty. So we now know that suspect 2 is innocent.
Yep.
Which means that we can shackle suspect 2. Oh no, that won't help us.
What we want to do is shackle 0 to somebody so that we can execute 0 and possibly take 1 or 3 with them.
Let's do that. So we'll do that one to number 1, which we don't know about, and then we
for information design, that little glowing blue thing when you're halfway through the chain.
Yes, that's quite nice, and actually the chain as well. The chain that shows they're linked. That's quite good.
Yeah.
So let's execute them.
And
so we know they're innocent. So we'll release them. We know number 2 is innocent. So we'll release number 2. And that just leaves us not knowing anything about this person.
Yeah.
Do you think they look shifty?
From a sort of metagaming point of view, we had 2 innocent and 1 guilty so far. So I'm guessing we maybe have 2 and 2. This guy's guilty.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the stripy outfit that does the job, right? It's like, yeah, you got that.
There we have it.
Right. Let's go forward. So we've still got this.
Maybe interesting to talk about in terms of information design, right? Like this game is built entirely around information as a logic puzzle. And we've seen a couple of levels here where, at least the way we've done it, we've had to make a guess somewhere. And I don't know what your opinions are on that, whether that is acceptable, that you might have to guess some of it and try again, or whether or not we should be expecting all of these levels to have a perfect solution where you have exactly the right number of bits of information in the information theoretic sense.
It's a very difficult thing to get right. So the best game I can think of that incorporates this is Return of the Obra Dinn, right? So for those people who haven't played it, Return of the Obra Dinn is a mystery game where you go on board a ghost ship with a special device that lets you look back at the moment of death. And you see there's like a frozen tableau that you can look at and investigate. And your job is to try and figure out how every member of crew died, right? So essentially you have a log which says this person was killed in this way by this person, right?
Yeah.
And to stop you just guessing, you have to do them in groups of 3, right? So what that means is that it becomes statistically feasible to guess when you're right down to the last bit, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things you can do is if there's one death that you're really unsure about, or unsure about one element of it, you can link it together with 2 others that you're sure about and then take a few guesses and then it'll knock it off the list for you, right? So I think guessing has a place because in Obra Dinn what it does is it stops you getting stuck, right?
Yeah.
but it has to be very carefully controlled. And in here, I think the problem is it's just in, I'm not convinced it's. I suppose it does unstick you and let you progress, but then you can progress anyway, regardless of how many people you've.
Yeah.
Right. Should we move on to the next one, and then we'll try and solve this puzzle. So we're on to meaningful play, right?
Yeah, we want to talk about mechanics, controls, and bugs.
The mechanics, obviously, I can move around. I've got levers I can pull. I've got these little markers I can make. I pick up stuff and I can look at descriptions and I can use it, right? So that's not a massive set of mechanics, but it's fine. It's a decent set, enough to build a game with. Controls are pretty good. There's the problem that you don't have a clue what to do when you start out, but that's a separate thing.
As a tutorial.
But yeah, their controls are absolutely fine. Am I engaged? Yeah, I'm kind of engaged. I would say it was an engaging game. I wouldn't go as far as to say it was particularly fun. Right? Maybe for the reasons we said, it kind of it feels a little bit clumsy to play because I'm having to traipse around when actually what I'm really doing is trying to solve a logic puzzle.
I don't know how many more people will see in bigger levels, but I wonder whether or not running back and forth along the platform will eventually get tiresome.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the engagement from this game will come from the interesting and clever combinations of the tools you've got. And I think the 3 tools we've got are good, introduced one at a time in pacing. We'll come back to that tutorial. But I think if we can get a few more levels in, we might find that the engagement goes up when you've got several things to combo in cool ways.
Yeah, it could be. So, okay, so here we've got suspect 0 is guilty. So they've accused suspect 1 of being innocent. So we know suspect 1 is also guilty. So we know they're guilty. We know they're guilty as well. So I can bribe this person too.
Yeah.
And they have said they've accused suspect 3 of being guilty, which means that they're innocent. So that means I can now tie these 2 together with some cuffs. So if I tie that one with the one I don't know, see, that's what I mean. Like, that's just annoying. Tie them together like that, and now we can do some executing. Here we go. So they've gone. Oh, that person's gone as well. And then we'll free that person. 404. Look at that.
Awesome.
Okay. We've got a new thing. Right. Well, let's pick. What is the new thing? I'm a bit worried about a blood-stained hammer, if I'm honest. But so look, a murder weapon. Use it on a suspect to frame them and ensure they are guilty, regardless of their previous role. Oh, so I can change somebody to. I'm not entirely sure that is what a good Investicutioner lozenge should be doing. Let's have a look.
It sure makes the puzzle more interesting.
Yeah. One guilty suspect. Okay, so what I can do then, so the point here presumably is I give this poor person a murder weapon.
Yeah.
They are now guilty, and then I can tie them together with this person with the fate cuffs.
Yeah.
Execute them, and they were innocent. Marvellous. And that's it. And then we release this person.
Yeah. That is a nice interaction from a sort of logic and mechanics point of view. The fate cuffs interacting specifically on the execution.
I like that. I've just spent a few minutes complaining about the 3D-ness and the needlessness of it. But I have to say the logic puzzles themselves are good and they're engaging and they're interesting. So in terms of meaningful play, I think they've what we just said, was that a good level?
Yeah, engaging is good.
So I think it's definitely engaging, right?
Yeah.
What would it need to be to get up to excellent?
Then we would want to see fun complementary mechanics, intuitive controls, and higher complexity, no bugs. I think we might be halfway there. I guess with complementary mechanics, we've just had a new one introduced, so we might have to put a pin in and see if we come back to.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I think that the we've seen enough of these little puzzle devices, that you can give to people, that you could say that those are complementary. So I think that for the reasons we've said, I don't think it can be excellent, but I think we can put it halfway between the two.
Yeah,
that's fine. So that so hang on, let's have a look at this one. It says one guilty suspect, and we can frame somebody, and we can accuse. Well, okay. So unfortunately, so the truth serum is really useful, right? Because it gives you a kind of starting point to solve the puzzle.
Yes. The other ones are parity checks between two people.
So maybe what we need to do is use the murder weapon to make this person guilty, right? So they're now guilty.
Right? Then bribe them.
Then we can bribe them.
Because they'll tell us a lie for sure.
So suspect 2 is guilty, so that means that suspect 2 is now innocent.
Yeah.
Then we can tie these two together with the cuffs of whatever they were, fake cuffs. So I quite like it as a puzzle. I think it's quite nice.
It's got quite a satisfying level of complexity. It's not so hard that you feel overwhelmed and can't go anywhere, and it's not so easy that you immediately see the trivial solution.
Yes. Oh, we've got a new thing: the scales of justice, or something.
Is that going to make someone innocent for sure?
No, it really is the scales of justice. A divine set of scales. Use them on any suspect to assess the current state of all suspects. Doing so reveals whether there is a majority of guilty or innocent suspects, or if they are equal in number.
Okay.
This is nice. I like the way it's building up and making the puzzles more complex. That's quite nice.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Oops. Still find it a little bit clumsy to do this. Right, here we go. So we've got one guilty suspect. All right. Well, before
we apply the hammer. The hammer could create an extra.
Yes. So before we do that, let's do the next criteria.
Yeah. So next, we're looking at level design, goals, risk, rewards. So the goals are pretty clear. It's a puzzle.
Goals are very clear and they're set out nicely by the clues at the beginning, so that's fine. Risks and rewards is kind of interesting. So I suppose we know what the goal is. It's to find all the guilty people, and we get a score depending on how many of the prisoners we get right and wrong.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 prisoners. We're going to get either 0, 1, or 2. So that's all fine. Risk reward is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Is there anything that we risk? What I'm wondering about here is there any benefit to solving the puzzle without using all of your consumables?
Yeah, there isn't. I think I kind of so the way. I mean, maybe they'll do this later, but the sort of thing that would have done it would be to give you, for example, imagine if on the wall over there was a smash box to get truth serum.
Yeah.
Right? And I can do that on any puzzle, but I only have it once in my run, right? So basically that's, if I got stuck, I can go and grab a truth serum and it will effectively unstick me on the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And let me through. Or will help me in some way. That then gives me a risk reward, right? And then at the end, you could, you would, and then you get a secondary objective, which is not only do you have to solve the puzzles and get through and get all the prisoners right, but can you do it without breaking this truth serum boxes?
Yeah.
Break glass for emergency truth serum. I think would have been a really useful addition. That would have then
equivalent to you're given a truth serum, but you're rewarded if you don't use it.
Yes. So you kind of so your risk is, do you not use it and get your thing, or do you use it and then you get the reward because you get the sort of badge at the end, I suppose, saying you've completed without truth serum.
And but without a similar risk reward would be if your items carried over from level to level.
That would also be another way to.
You could risk not using it on an early level in order to have more stuff for the harder levels.
Yeah.
And that would be the same.
Absolutely. So that might be a similar thing. I think particularly if you could move about between the levels a bit more. So you could say, so instead of going through sequentially like this, and maybe you can do this. I haven't tried going out, but I'm presuming if I go out, it will reset. But imagine if I had these 16 puzzles to solve, and what I can do is I can go into one of the puzzles, solve it, but leave an item out, and then go into any other puzzle, right? Yeah. So that creates a sort of meta game around the puzzles. So those are ways.
plausible that, like, you know, the hardest level could even have references to the previous levels and clever, intricate tie-ins like that, which would be
which give you an extra depth to the puzzles as well. So, but without that kind of decision making, I don't think there are any risks and rewards.
Is it worth trying to just, you know, randomly select the answer to this puzzle and see if you do have items left over, what it does to you? Because I don't think we've actually tried that yet.
Do you know what? That's a very, very good point. All right, let's just kill some people. So I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to save you. Nothing.
So it doesn't say next. You've got items left over, good job, or something.
No, so it didn't. And we just passes us on to the next level straight away, and we've just got a table of stuff. I don't know. I suppose it could have put them on the table, but I'm guessing not.
So in terms of goals, risk, rewards, goals are clear. Risks and rewards are... Well, the rewards, to some extent, are established because you can get half of the puzzle right, but there's not really risks anyway.
But there's no balance. The whole point about risk rewards is it's really one thing, right? And it's like, is there a risk you can take for some reward? And the answer is no, there isn't. There's nothing.
You are told what your rewards are in terms of the goals generally, but you don't get more of those rewards for a risk.
Yeah. So I think I think the goals are probably quite good. They're up at the sort of satisfactory or good level, and the risks are probably absent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would a pass say for this?
So for pass, we want limited set of goals, risk, rewards. Poor is incoherent or very limited set of goals, risk, rewards. We've got good goals but absent risk, rewards, so we end up somewhere between.
Yeah, I think we have to give them a poor, and I think the only reason they're not getting absent is because the goals are very clear.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. I think that would have been a really useful piece of feedback for them to get. So I'd be interested to see what feedback they did get. But they could have included it relatively simply, I think. And it's a shame because the rest of the puzzling is really nice, but it just is lacking that framing within a kind of bigger game context. Right, should we try and solve this one? So they say there are exactly 2 guilty suspects at the beginning of the level. So we've got some truth serum, so I always go for truth serum. So we'll truth serum this dude, and we'll get him to accuse somebody.
Yeah.
So suspect 0 is guilty. Right, so he's guilty. And he said that suspect 1 is guilty, so suspect 1 is innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. Right, so if that's the case, so we've got the scales of justice and we've got the hammer. So if I gave somebody else the hammer, and then that would help, I think. So let's try that. So if I give them the hammer, so they're now guilty. Seems very rough. So now I can use the scales of justice, and there are more guilty suspects than innocent suspects. So that must mean that this person is also guilty.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I'll hang you. See, now that this tick thing actually is helpful, because I think I would have probably forgotten. Free you, hang you. There we go, 4 out of 4. It's like we're almost getting good at this. Okay, what's the next criteria?
Okay, pacing. Tension rising somewhat clearly or coherently.
So, do you know what? I actually think their pacing's quite good. So the reason for that is that we started off, they introduce just 1 or 2 things, right? And then the puzzles get more complex with those 1 or 2 things. And then they introduced a new thing, which I think was the fake cuffs. And then the puzzles got really simple again, right? So it dropped down and I was able to solve them with the fake cuffs. And then they got complex. And then they introduced the scales of justice and the difficulty dropped down again. So that is exactly the kind of seesawing, gradually rising difficulty that you are trying to aim for in a game. So I think in terms of pacing their puzzles, they've done a really nice job, right?
Yeah, I think, as you say, across the levels, there's nice pacing. And I would say there's nice pacing within the levels as well, because you start with, no tension, you pick up some items, you get going, there's your first act, right? And then you go through and do the puzzly bit, and most of the time you don't commit to pulling any of the levers until right at the end of the puzzle, and that builds in this kind of tension before you get to the big moment.
Yeah, so you sort of like reveal your answers. So I think it's really nice. I mean, what would a good be for pacing?
We've got tension rises over time in a coherent pattern.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going up towards excellent, says rises over time in a coherent and well-balanced pattern.
I think they're there.
Yeah.
What would praiseworthy be?
That would be tension rises over time in a coherent and well-balanced pattern linked to variations in gameplay, which is kind of what you were describing about the
I think we can go for an excellent. I think they did a really nice job. Their puzzle design is really nice.
Yeah. And the question is, if we think the consumables are a strong enough link, then we're going up almost towards praiseworthy.
I think they are linked. I mean, it's relatively straightforward linkage, but it is linked, and I think we can give them the praiseworthy.
All the way to praiseworthy or halfway?
I think we can give them the praiseworthy mark.
Okay, awesome.
Should we try and solve this one? We have no clues. We've got scales of justice. We don't have a hammer, so I'm wondering about using the scales of justice to start with, because we can't change anything anyway.
Yeah.
So let's see what the scales of justice say. There are more guilty than innocent, so that means that 3 of these people are guilty.
Yeah. And it interacts nicely or interestingly with there being 4 suspects, right? Different numbers of suspects means that mechanic does something different, and that's quite efficient or quite elegant design that one tool builds different puzzles for you in different contexts.
Yeah. So I'm just going to bribe this one because I think there's no harm in that. So suspect 0 accuses suspect 2 of being guilty. So the problem...
Either he's innocent and everyone else isn't, or he's guilty and...
Yeah, so if he's guilty... then suspect 2 is innocent.
Yeah.
Right? But if he's innocent, then suspect 2 is guilty. So the question is, do we try and bribe someone else in the hope that they'll finger him? Or do we do suspect 2?
I think we want 2. On the basis that we know there's only one innocent, and it's either 0 or 2, and whatever 2 tells us, as long as they don't point back at suspect 0. There we go.
So suspect 0 accuses suspect 2 of being guilty, and suspect 2 accuses suspect 3 of being guilty.
Yeah. So 0 and 2 are of different alignments, and 2 and 3 are of different alignments.
Well, hang on. If suspect 0 is innocent, then suspect 2 is guilty. And if suspect 2 is... if suspect 1 is innocent, 2 is guilty, and 3 is innocent. So we have 2 innocents, which we cannot have.
Can't work.
Right?
Yeah.
So suspect 1 must be guilty.
Yeah.
In which case they accuse suspect 2 of being guilty, which means suspect 2 is innocent.
Yeah.
Marvellous. Right. Okay, so let's release suspect 2 and kill everybody else.
Yep.
In execution is such hard work. Right, there we go. That one. 4 out of 4. There we go. How many more of these have we got? So they're definitely getting more complex. We've got lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. The notes say they introduce new mechanics at levels 3, 4, 7, 11, 13. I think we've seen all the new mechanics, so we've definitely gone past 13. We're on 14, 15, maybe 16 now.
Okay. This level has no clues. Okay, let's go on to the next criteria. So what are we on?
Tutorial. We're looking for
the tutorial explanation. So they have done some things really nicely. So one of the things they do really nicely is that they gradually introduce the kind of tools that you have as the levels progress. We've already talked about it for pacing, but also it's tutorialized in that they tell you about them one by one, and then they have a puzzle that you use that thing in order to solve the puzzle, right? And and they've designed it in such a way that simple puzzle is integral to the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think in terms of introducing things gradually and then aligning them with play and explaining them as they go, they've done a brilliant job.
And I think a good symptom of that is that we discovered the combos like truth serum followed by bribe is a particularly effective strategy. They didn't have to tell us that explicitly. We learned that because of the way the level was designed.
So the one thing they done badly, which really threw us off at the beginning, and actually made me think the tutorial element was going to be terrible, was that they didn't tell me how to reveal my items, and therefore when the first bit of paper came up, I didn't know what to do with it. Right?
Yeah.
And again, I wonder if this is a playtesting problem. I wonder if they playtested this with anyone who'd never played the game before.
Mm.
Because as soon as you get that mechanism, everything else was fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know that mechanism, I mean, I was literally hitting keys at random to try and figure out how to do it. So I think that is a flaw, but I don't think I think you still have to recognise they've done a really nice job of aligning it the rest of the time.
So it's really interesting. The mark scheme says gradual explanation of gameplay and controls with various levels of success. The explanation of gameplay has been absolutely fantastic, and the explanation of controls has been somewhat lacking.
Yes. So, for example, what would an excellent be for tutorial?
So, excellent says gradual explanation of gameplay and controls, fully aligned with play, and sometimes communicated through level design. So I would say for gameplay, yes, it's fully aligned with play, it's communicated through level design.
And I think so. I think what we have to do is we have to say it would have been excellent, but because of that error with the controls at the beginning, probably we can only put it down as good.
Yeah.
But I still think we should reward it. It's much harder to integrate the explanation with play than it is to have hold F to inspect on the screen basically. So I think we should. So we can recognise that. Right, so suspect 1-0 is innocent. We know they're innocent. Okay. So that means that I can give them this. Where's it gone? Oh, there we go. The fact they move around is also a bit annoying. I can give them this, and we'll know that they're right. Yeah?
Mm.
So we know that 0 is innocent, and we know that 1 is innocent. So I'm wondering whether we don't know about these 3. I'm wondering whether we need to use the scales of justice.
Yeah.
There we go. Scales of justice. Scales of justice say there are more innocent than guilty. So we've got at least 1 more innocent. Okay. Or maybe I should have given a thing to somebody first. Maybe I should have given somebody a hammer.
Yeah. I don't think we've yet seen a level where we've got 2 scales of justice, but it'd be really interesting to have used scales of justice, then apply a hammer, then apply scales of justice again, and see if something changes.
Right. So 1 or 2 of these are guilty.
Yeah.
So I reckon what we do is maybe balance of probabilities.
Well, I think if you force one of them to be guilty and link them, then you can execute the guilty one and learn about the other.
Yes, but if I do this, I've got a chance of, and then I can make that one guilty, basically.
You force the last one to be guilty and execute them. Yeah.
So execute both of those. We can force this one to be guilty.
Yeah.
And we haven't quite solved the puzzle on this one. So they're now guilty. So they're guilty. These 2 are innocent, and we've got at least 4, I think, but not necessarily the 5. Oh, we did get the 5. Right. We were lucky. I said we played our luck. There we go. We're back to here, and we've got our level select again. So we've played the whole thing now. Right.
Okay. Shall we turn our attention to the core dynamic?
So core dynamic. Well, it's not spatial reasoner, but it is a logic puzzle. So that's the core dynamic. It's a puzzle.
Yeah. They've called it a spatial reasoning puzzle game. We sort of agree with the puzzle game bit there. The spatial component is incidental.
I think that's probably our fault because we only introduced them to spatial reasoning as a puzzle type when we talk about core dynamics. But it's a logic puzzle.
Yeah. I think almost to describe it slightly as like a resource management, right? You're given some tools how do you apply these tools to get your
except resource management is more about managing the levels of your resources, right?
Sure.
And the feedback loops between them. I mean, I mean, if I was to think about this, I think it's very clearly a puzzle game. They basically said it's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
It's a logic puzzle game. The mechanics all contribute towards that puzzle game, right? With one exception, which is walking around, which is pointless, which we've already kind of moaned about a bit. So if I pick this up, I'm just checking. There's definitely nothing that tells you, is there? Yeah, there's nothing that tells you to press 2 to bring it up. That's all that's missing. That's all that's missing.
Yeah.
Is above that little box needs to be the number 2.
Yeah.
Right? And then I just go press 2. Oh look, and then it says hold F to inspect, and now everything's fine, right? So that's literally all they've done. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think if I remember rightly, good for core dynamic would be that all the mechanics lead towards that dynamic. Is that right?
Yeah, a clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanics.
I think that's where we are. Excellent. What does it say for that?
Then we'd need supported by an integrated set of mechanics. We might have that.
I think we might have that. Yeah, I think because all the mechanics they work nicely with one another. They're informational mechanics, right? The actual thing I'm doing is walking up people and pressing E, but I think we can say that the puzzle is designed nicely enough that it gets up to an excellent. I think for it to be prizeworthy, it would have to have supportive other dynamics, and I don't think it has that.
But, no, I think this is pretty pure puzzle.
So what happens if I get one completely wrong? So 0. I still got to do next. So no one. Also, I don't think it gave me a score at the end, having gone through the whole thing, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think your level selector doesn't have contextual. You've done this level, or you've got this score on this level, or something, does it?
So that could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Suspect. That's what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. So where does that take us for the for the next bit?
Then we need feedback. So they got a couple of bits of feedback. The first bit was the player should be able to keep track of the suspects they think are innocent or guilty. That's where they put the signs up and the things that you could mark with the particular cross.
I poo-pooed that a bit at the beginning, but actually I think that was a good decision. It works.
Yeah. And actually in the same bit they were saying, and also get feedback when they're using items. So we've had small animation and sound effect for item use. That all sounds good. And then the second thing they point out, which I think they've done a good job of, major feedback on introduce the mechanisms one at a time with that tutorialized level design, and allow the player to use that tool before moving on to the next level. I think they've done a very good job with that.
So actually, in terms of responding to feedback, I think they've responded pretty well, right? So that what would a good be?
Yeah, so feedback's been addressed and the change has been successul.
Definitely
if we're going higher than that, we'd expect feedback has been interpreted and addressed and been successful.
So some of them I think are kind of like the keeping track is very straightforward, but maybe they said that you had to have a chance to use the new things as you went, right? I think they've pretty much straightforwardly incorporated it.
Yeah,
but they've done a good job. But I still think it's good.
Yeah, so good.
So any final thoughts on this one?
I thought it was pretty engaging, and because the pacing was so good, we've played it for quite a long time here, and kind of enjoyed it as we've gone through. I think this has been a particularly successful game.
Yeah, I think so. I kind of there are one or two things that really put me off to begin with. So not telling me to press the 2 key, right, was that that was a pretty bad red flag to start with. And then the fact that I've got this whole environment that really doesn't do anything, and I thought, why am I here? What's this for? There are some games that play with this. So it is, what's it called? Is it Inscription, the kind of card game in the woods? So that has a really interesting thing where you're playing a card game, but you're actually within a sort of 3D cabin, and you approach the table and you play on the table. And initially that feels a bit like this. It's like, well, the 3D is a bit superfluous, and why is it here? But as the game progresses, it becomes more important, right? And the game opens up and it does some really interesting stuff. This doesn't, right? So I think they've made a couple of missteps. It is a shame that they didn't think about risks and rewards. But I have to say the puzzle design's really nice. The integration, the pacing is excellent. And they still managed to produce something that's very engaging. So I think some of the best puzzle design I think we've seen. Really, really good. Yeah. Okay. I think that's the last game of our batch. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you again in another video.